Hi guys, it's your girl Felicia Hankerson. I hope you can hear me because we're going to go live in about 9 minutes, and it's going to be Wills and More with Eileen Marcial. So I'm going to bring her on the camera so she could be ready, and we're going to have a great time. Stay tuned for Wills and More. I'm hoping that you guys have your questions prepared as well. So we still have a few minutes before we go live, but just to remind everybody, this is Wills and More. And basically, you should be able to ask Eileen from Wills and More anything you would like about Wills and More. And before she starts, I'm going to have her just tell a little bit about herself and her business and what makes her the expert in giving this advice. And full disclosure, no, we are not attorneys, nor do we pretend to be attorneys. But Eileen is someone who is very vested in this business, and she's very familiar with how to navigate and get you what you need at an affordable price. So we still have a few moments. I just wanted to give everyone ample amount of time to get in. And I did not want to have any issues as we had last week with some folks couldn't get in online. So I'd rather come in a few minutes earlier to make it easy and seamless for everyone. So we're going to count down.
Right.
Get your questions ready, everybody. Eileen, are you excited?
I'm very excited. I'm always happy to be able to share this information. So, yes,
Can you hear me clear, Eileen?
I hear you perfectly. All right, let's showtime.
It is showtime because now it is 7 o'clock. So let's get this show started.
Yeah,
Eileen,
yeah, let's go.
yes. Eileen, I want to thank you so much for your time and the expertise of knowledge you get ready to drop on everyone about wills and more. Since it's 7 o'clock, I wanted you to go through an introduction of yourself to give people an opportunity to come online and ask some questions. So please go ahead and do what you do.
Okay, awesome. Hello, everyone. My name is Eileen Marcial. So glad that you're able to join us for a Real Talk Tuesdays. I'm the founder and CEO of Wills and More. We are the premier estate planning service for everyday families and small business owners so they could leave a legacy instead of a mystery. We want to make sure that folks know they're not priced out of the estate planning process. And so Wills and More offers different platforms of services that help folks get things done. Right? Because we leave too many mysteries instead of legacies, too many messes instead of memories. And so wow, since 2013, I've been able to work with folks using one particular platform that has been very good for us, but there are others that we use. So what we do is we simplify and demystify the process to make sure you have what's called a love letter will package, because a lot of folks don't like the word wills. You know that, right, Miss Felicia?
Yes, I do.
So they just don't like the word will. So we soften that blow by calling it a love letter will package. And that is the will, living will, healthcare power of attorney, financial power of attorney, and minus trust if you have children under the age of 18. We do include an additional cost, a special needs trust if you have family members that have special needs, because if you don't have that in place, the state's not going to be nice to them.
Okay. And when you say special needs, you mean someone who might be mentally incapacitated or physically incapacitated, something like that?
Yes, someone of diminished capacity. So I know on first-hand basis that dementia is snatching up people at a record pace, right? So that's diminished capacity. Special needs are if it's mental or physical disability or autism or any other of the special needs realm without going into deep detail.
Okay, okay, understood. So you offer all these gamuts, all these different avenues to help people. So I guess once they come and talk with you and meet with you, you then recommend which way they should go based upon their individual needs.
Absolutely. When I meet with them, we determine or discern which platform is best for them. The platform I've used the most has been the most cost effective for most, but some people need different things. So I'm not an attorney. I don't pretend to be one on TV or anywhere else. However, I do know what's necessary to make sure that these documents are prepared and prepared properly. This is not something you want to do as a DIY. You don't
What
want to pull it offline and just send it off and hope for the best because it's easily contested. One wrong thing could just throw the whole thing straight into probate and more chaos. So if you have opportunity to get these documents done properly by an estate planning attorney, by all means avail yourself of that. And that's what we've been able to do for hundreds of families so they can leave that legacy.
So your firm offer estate planning attorneys for those who need it, right?
Absolutely. We have direct attorneys directly that you can sit with. They are the highest tier, the most expensive. We have other programs that can help you with your trust. We have a program that I'm particularly fond of that has attorneys in every state and estate planning attorneys in every state. And by being able to have that in place, you're able to get these documents created. And then you must make sure you get them notarized so that they count. Because if it's not notarized, it doesn't count.
Oh, really?
Yes, in most states. I know New Jersey is one, and New York is special in so many ways. New York, you actually have to have your will notarized by an attorney.
Okay. So that's great. So my question is, in order to get something notarized, let's say the descendant, that's the person who passed away, right? Losing
Decedent.
term,
Uh-huh. Decedent.
decedent. Let's say that they pass away,
Hmm.
and they pass away in Florida. That will need to be in Florida and notarized in Florida.
If somebody moves, they need to speak with an attorney to make sure that their estate planning documents reflect the rules and regulations of that jurisdiction. There could be a lot of extra problems if they do not. So what we've been able to do is speak with folks, and I've had folks move from New Jersey back home to North Carolina. They speak with the North Carolina law firm and get it revised so it reflects the rules of probate and surrogacy for their respective state.
Understood. 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 I have my sister on the line, Annette, and I have my good friend Sophia on the line. Hi-
Hey,
Say hi.
welcome.
Good ladies. So we're going to open the full floor for questions as well. But I did get a question from someone that I want to share.
Okay.
Do you mind if I read it?
Oh,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay. Here was a question that came in from someone earlier. They said that they their mother is alive and doesn't own any property, and their mother put them on their her checking account as POD.
Payable on death.
Do they need to have a will, or is the POD on the checking account suffice?
If there's no assets at all, there's really no need to have a love letter will package as long as they have medical power of attorney and financial power of attorney. But if the only asset that she has, depending on the state she's in,
New
so as I
Jersey.
said, I'm not an attorney. The
She's in New
state that
Jersey.
they're in reflects whether or not that's going to be sufficient. You know, the payable on death, transferable on death, or beneficiary on file is usually what's needed so that the the folks that are left behind don't have to wait for letters of testamentary and all that stuff, so that they can close out the account. Found that out on first-hand basis, even with the payable on death not being an heir, they gave me a hard time. But the thing is this: if you have that in place or someone as a co-signer on your checking account, you should be fine. No need to go and get a will because those your wishes are clear. You want your daughter or son to be the ones to take over your account to do what's necessary. So there's no need for an additional expense. in my.
Okay, so that's a fee. Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And then, do you have a question you want to ask? You can text it. Stephone, if you have a question you want to ask, you can text as well. We were on we were on line early today because we didn't want to have any issues as we had last time. So we wanted to make sure we were early to get this thing going sooner than later.
That was so sad last week. I was all ready.
I know, I know. Okay, so let me see. I might have another question. I mean, yeah, hold on, let me read it. Okay, I have a question. There's another question that came up. Someone has a property that they owned before they got married. Now, when they pass, is the other person entitled to the house if they have children?
Okay, so let me see if I'm understanding this correctly. Somebody got married after they had their own property, correct?
Hmm.
Okay, so now that's the reason that we need to discuss having prenuptial agreements. Because when you have a prenuptial agreement, you are marrying somebody and you already have your own things. Unless you want it to be community property and end up in the hands of somebody else's kids, somebody else's nieces and nephews, you want to make sure that you have a clearly stated prenuptial agreement of what you want to have happen with your property or asset you're bringing into the marriage. So a
Okay.
prenuptial agreement is something, a prenuptial, postnuptial agreement is something that you need to have addressed. And that becomes part of your will so that people that you don't want to have your stuff won't get your stuff.
Wow. That's great. Thank you
You're
so much. Have a
welcome.
question here. Do you keep the original will in a safe deposit box or does it stay with you in your office?
It depends on your personal preference. If you have it in a safe deposit box, make sure your executor or executrix has access to the key. Because I know when my dad passed away, he had gotten a little loopy towards the end. And so he had, first of all, he moved the will, then he hit the key. So it was all kind of chaos trying to get into the safe deposit box. And then the will wasn't there because he put it in some weird place that I think he was having onset dementia towards the end. And so it gets a little hectic. So I would suggest if you have a safe deposit box, that the person who's your executor or executrix know that's there. Additionally, you can put it in a safe in your house, and somebody needs to know the combination, just as long as somebody knows where it is. Certain states allow you to file the will, and if you file the will, then your executor or executrix just has to go down to the surrogate's office where it's filed at.
There you go. I'm not muted anymore.
Yay, yay.
Okay. Do we have any other questions? Yeah, I know that it's Ramadan. We have quite a good amount of people who was interested. Let me see if I have any more emails that came in with questions.
Okay.
Oh, Eileen, while I check my email,
Uh-huh.
can you elaborate a little bit about you were talking about if someone had stock options or I don't know, some kind of gold coins or something, how you said that that might be important for them to leave in a will
Right.
or
Absolutely. If you have like a coin collection, a gun collection, anything of value that is not a fiduciary thing, a monetary thing, you want to have it in the will, complete description of what it is and who is supposed to get that. That's part of your will and your wishes. Now, conversely, when you have a bank account, you have stocks and bonds, and you have all these different portfolios, your financial planner or your accountant will instruct you to make sure that you have a beneficiary on file, payable on death, or transferable on death. But one of the things that is imperative when you have a beneficiary on file, a payable on death or transferable on death, you need to check at least once a year to make sure they're one of three things. One, still alive. Two, still in your good graces. Three, still in their right mind. The reason these are important is that when my dad passed away 15 years ago, my mom was still listed as the beneficiary and she predeceased him by 5 years.
Oh,
Quick, yeah. Thank God I was on there so we didn't have to go through any hoops of fire. But then I have a situation where one of my good friends, her niece passed away unexpectedly. And she was living with a guy. They broke up. The guy moved on. She passed away and didn't get to take him off of her insurance policy. Because she did not, this man who was moved on to another woman got $60,000 from her insurance proceeds. So you want to check your
wow.
beneficiaries at least once a year to make sure they're alive, still in your good graces. And the third one is that they're still in their right mind. Dementia is snatching up people at a record pace. So you want to make sure the person or persons you selected haven't succumbed to that.
Wow. That's so amazing. I never even thought of it like that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Even if it's a matter of you were married before. So for the ladies, you do not want your husband getting your stuff. So make sure your husband is no longer listed as a beneficiary. For the gentleman on the line, if you've been married before, you do, and you don't want your ex-wife, also known as a once was your wife, to get your assets, you need to make sure you change it to the person you want to benefit from what you're leaving behind.
Understood. Thank you so much for that. That's really, really, really important. Never knew. And
Yeah, she's still joining, at least from what I'm seeing. So while we're working on that, I just wanted to bring to your attention, I didn't see another question, but it is so important that we get these documents in order. And a lot of folks in certain demographics tend to shy away from this, but now more than ever, we need to make sure that we have our affairs in order so that if there's something we want our family to have, they get it. And we have to make sure that it's in writing. So I've been doing this for 12 years now, and I love what I do. We've assisted on over 600 of these love letter will packages since the pandemic. So what I would love is that to invite you all to one of my full seminars, or actually Zooms, which I do every Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I'll put the information in the chat, and hopefully you could join us this Sunday. But the main thing is you want to have your love letter in place. And so the love letter is comprised of, first and foremost, the will. The will is the document that you say what your wishes are, and you identify who you want to be the person who handles and distributes your assets. You also are entitled to have what's called a medical power of attorney, where you decide who you want to speak with, your doctors, in the event you're not able to. Then there's a financial power of attorney. The financial power of attorney comes in two forms. The first one is a springing financial power of attorney. That springs into effect only when you're no longer able to make your own financial decisions. The other one is the durable financial power of attorney. And that's only for folks with diminished capacity, because when that document is signed and notarized, that means the person you've designated has power over your finances from that moment. You don't want that to happen. So the durable financial power of attorney is only for diminished capacity. We do a living will. What do you want at end of life? Do you want a feeding tube? Do you want a ventilator? Do you want to be plugged into the wall? Do you want to donate your body to science? If you do, please, while you still have sound mind and body, do your own due diligence. Because if you don't, your family's not going to be in a position to really want to do that search for you. and they're going to just bury you or cremate you. So make sure if you want something like that done, that you have that in writing. We have the beneficiaries on file, which I touched on before, and we have the minors trust. Minors trust are so important as a parent, as a grandparent. This is where if you have children under the age of 18, who do you want to raise your children? And you don't want your specific state to make those decisions for your children's behalf. So the first part of the minors trust is who do you want to be the guardian? Who do you want to raise your children in case you're not able to? It's not a popularity contest. What you're going to do is you're going to pick the person who's going to raise your child the way you wanted your child to be raised. Now, if by chance that person isn't good with finances, you want to pick someone else to be the conservator over what you're leaving to your child or children. And you designated what age do you want them to receive their inheritance. From age 18 all the way up to age 50. You know your children better than anyone else. But these are the things that are important to have in place. And that's what's included in our love letter will package. And then I would be remiss if I didn't touch on the fact that we are beset upon people that insist they need a trust. Everybody doesn't need a trust, family. You need a trust if you have something to put in the trust. I had a call from a young lady earlier today, and she said, well, I don't need a will, I need a trust. I said, okay. Well, what are you putting in the trust, may I ask? And what led you to believe that you needed a trust? She said, well, I wanted to put my cars in it. I said, do you want to spend over $1,000 to put cars that you may not have at the time of that they need to be used? This needs to be utilized. So what we're able to do, I use a will questionnaire, and that will questionnaire on the last page, page 6, clearly states what your assets are. You write them down, right? What do you own? What do you not own? What are your liabilities? We subtract the liabilities from your assets, and now we have a snapshot of what your net worth is. Then you can have an articulate conversation with an estate planning attorney that can tell you that, hey, based on what we see here, you need this kind of trust, you need that kind of trust, or you don't need a trust at all. So this young lady doesn't own any property. She has a bank account and a cat and a car. Why would you incur the expense of a trust when you could clearly do that in a will and be clear who you want to have that one asset? Because the financial assets you could put a payable on death, transferable on death, or beneficiary on file. Right? And so our package, or the package that we use the most, I love doing it because it's so cost effective. So I'm not going to take a deep dive on it right now, but if you want to schedule an appointment, we could have a consultation about which platform best serves you. And let's get it done. Because I took 6 years to get my will done because I was intimidated by the process, by the paperwork. If someone had taken the time to go through it and simplify and demystify that process for me, then it wouldn't have taken 6 years. So we're here to shorten the learning curve in which way we can so that people don't feel intimidated or priced out of the estate planning process.
Okay. What happens? Can you hear me?
I hear you, yes.
Okay. What happens if you have a will, but how do you talk to someone about where your will is so when you pass away they know where to go? And if you said that it needs to be recorded in some states, which one supersedes? The one that your attorney have or the one that you have in your house when you tell someone to go get?
Well, it all depends on the dating of it, I guess, and the state that you're in. So that's a question for an attorney, not for me. I would rather you get the exact answer with the attorney that knows the jurisdictional rules for estate, for surrogacy and things of that nature.
Okay. Okay. But it is important that when you do instruct this will, that you let someone know who's a family member, a beneficiary, where you keep your will, right?
Well, I'd be
Because
careful about the beneficiary,
oh,
but I would make sure that at least the executor or executrix is aware of it. I'm offering this book as a free gift to anyone who gets their wills done in the month of March. So, uh, what you're able to do in here is you can say where everything is. Like, for instance, on wills and trusts in this book, it says, "I have a last will and testament, which was executed, who the executor is, the living will, revocable trust, irrevocable trust, and the importance of that." You can say where your bank is. You could say who do you want to get your pets? What debts do you have? This is a journal for you to have in writing for your family to know exactly what needs to be done.
that's a question I wanted to ask about your debts. Someone told me that when their mother passed away, they wrote on her credit card bills, dead, and they put a copy of the death certificate, and that took away her. Well, they didn't have to pay it. Is that true?
Well, I'll tell you what, from personal experience, my mom, God rest her, she was a consummate shopper. So my mom had balances on 15 different credit cards when she passed away.
Hmm.
And so, of course, they started sending letters to my dad. My mom didn't have a will. I wasn't doing this then. This was 20 years ago. And so they sent all these letters to my dad. I called the law firm because we had an attorney through Legal Shield. I called the law firm and I told them what was going on. And they said, send a letter to each of the creditors with the death certificate, acknowledging the fact that there is no estate and that no one else was on these bills but her. Now they came back with a vengeance. They decided they were going to still try to see if they can squeeze money out of my dad. The law firm then wrote letters to each one of the creditors to cease and desist, and my dad never heard from them again. So, for all intents and purposes, I think student loans follow you to your grave, but in terms of like credit cards and things of that nature, I believe that they should die with you. But I don't, that's my thought because my mom's ended up ultimately not being held responsible by my dad.
Right. And particularly my thought process is if you don't have an estate, you can't get blood out of a turnip. That's what I used to say.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes.
Okay, good. Do we have any more questions out there? Okay. Trying to figure out if anybody else have any other questions.
Okay, what I'm going to do is put the information, the information for the Will seminar
Yes.
in the chat
Yep.
and my information.
That'd be wonderful. And how long does it take the process to get everything in place? Is there anything special that anyone has to do?
Well, what needs to be done is you need to have if you work with me, depending on which platform you choose, it could be as short as 2 weeks. The paperwork goes to the law firm. They create what needs to be created. And there's other factions that we work with that could be quicker or shorter, depending on the intricacies of what you need done.
I guess what I'm trying to ask too is if someone has a diminished capacity mentally, is there anybody else that have to like oversee them, or do they have to go for a doctor for some kind of clearance before they can
Great.
do the will?
Excellent question. Excellent question. So, when there is a person with diminished capacity, that's why it's so important to get this document done before they become diminished capacity. Because if it's not, and the person is unable to handle their own decisions, now you have to go to court. Court has a comma in that price tag to provide guardianship. And the courts don't know the family dynamic. So your loved one could end up with a person that doesn't know or care to take care of the person that needs the care. So this is a love letter. And so I feel it's important to have those conversations with our loved ones while they are still able to make their decisions. And what I often say is that we're not trying to take away your rights or your benefits or your house or anything like that. We want you to be able to be cared for by the person or persons that you want to take care of you, not who the state or someone else designates to do so. So it's important to let that know that the ball, our loved ones know that the ball's in their court. So they still have the right to make the decisions while they're still in their right mind.
Understood. I think that's something that's similar that happened to Wendy Williams. She was
Oh
doing
man,
well. She was on top of the world, and then she had to have some kind of conservatory. Conservatorship.
conservatorship. Mm-hmm.
So, what's the difference between that and what you just said about guardianship?
Okay, to the best of my understanding, layman's answer. Conservatorship is when you got a whole lot of money, you're rich and you're famous.
Okay.
All right. Now, guardianship is everyday people that aren't able to take care of themselves, and someone needs to be designated to be able to make their medical decisions, their financial decisions, and their care decisions.
Okay.
So, because
Thank
the
you.
only other person I've heard of conservatorship for was Britney Spears.
Right.
So you only hear about that with rich and famous people.
Right.
So to my layman's answer, that's what I tend to believe is the situation.
Okay. I appreciate that. Thank you so
No
much.
problem. Great question.
Yeah.
But
Do
you
we have?
definitely,
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
so you definitely want to make sure that you have that conversation with your loved ones while they're still in their right minds, because you do not want to have to pay for guardianship in the courthouse and they don't know the family dynamic.
Yes. That's so true. And I'm so sorry my screen is frozen. I don't know what's wrong with my phone.
At least we can hear you though. That's
That's
important.
important. It's just frozen on in the outer space. Is there any other questions out there? Eileen is putting her information in the chat, everyone. On Sunday, she put the meeting link, her ID, so you can get a more in-depth information about wills and more. Anything else you want to add to that, Eileen?
Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm putting my name. If you would like to reach out to me, please feel free to text me. I'm a dinosaur, so IG and all that kind of stuff just don't work for me. So I'm old school. So I'm just going to put my name. Feel free to text me. You could even just text me. That's so much easier
Yep.
because I see those faster.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to put Wilson Moore. And let's schedule a time. So one, I can get you this book, and two, you can get your love letter signed, sealed, and delivered.
Yeah, that book is very, very beneficial, and I like it because it's like I know a lot of people nowadays like the computers, but I like something physical. So that
Absolutely.
physical book is like in my I have a curio, and it has my last request, and that book is sitting right there. So when I pass away, it's not hard for my family to find it, and they'll see everything that's there.
Absolutely. We need to leave a roadmap for folks. 'Cause there's so much chaos. Oh, another thing too, I wanted to touch on. When my dad passed away, my dad had a telephone book. One of those old school telephone books that he wrote
Mhm.
everything in.
Mhm.
I don't have a telephone book. Right now, my phone is my telephone book, and probably is the same for most people. But for the most part, most people do not let anyone else know their password. So when they die, they leave chaos, total chaos, because no one knows what who to contact. No one knows the accounts and the passwords to close things out. So that's another layer of chaos. So you want to make sure you have something like a password manager. We offer a service like that through one of our platforms, or you can get it through your phone. The main thing is that there is some place for one of your loved ones to go to when you are no longer here to get the access to the information they need to close out your accounts, so that they're not just spinning their wheels and trying to find money. And you've got, Good Morning America always has their found money segment. You don't want to have to try to find the money on the found money segment. You want to know where it is so it can be taken care of and handled in-house.
Yeah, that's very good, Eileen, because you know what I found out? I found out that you're absolutely right. People don't want to give it up. And even on Facebook and social media platforms, it's a little eerie because when someone passes away, their Facebook face is still there if their
Oh
family don't know
my,
the password.
how creepy is it when you get one of those wish so and so happy birthday and you went to their funeral 6 years ago,
Yep,
right? That is so freaking creepy.
it is.
So you want a well worded in memoriam page on each platform. And that means someone needs to have access to your passwords to be able to put stuff there.
Okay, that's a good one. Was that in the book? I didn't see that.
No, that's one of the things you'll hear on Sunday. It's probably in here,
Okay,
but that's something you learn. Yeah,
okay.
I go over that on Sunday on my Will Zoom. So hopefully y'all would join us and bring a friend.
All right, I appreciate that. Thank you so very, very much. Thank you for your time. Is there any other
That's
questions out there at anyone? I mean, I want to really extend my humblest gratitude and thanks to Eileen for taking her time to really drop us with these golden nuggets. This is so much important stuff, right? And she is the expert in this. And this is something that we should all know or want to know about. Just one last thing before you close, Eileen. There was
absolutely.
there was something else you had mentioned, and it wasn't like with the gold coins and
Oh,
guns,
crypto and
crypto.
NFTs.
Yes.
Yes.
What
Oh,
is the NFG? I don't know what that is.
okay. First of all, every Sunday keep saying I'll find out what it is. NFT is non-fungible token, which means you own part of some image of something somewhere. It is so George Jetson to me that I'm just like, what? But to those who have it, just like crypto, you need to have a beneficiary on file with, I guess, if I don't know if it's a wallet with the NFT, but with crypto, everything is in a wallet. Each wallet that you have your cryptocurrency in, some you have to have a beneficiary on file, so that person will be able to access your 12 or 24 character password or phrase. Without that, your crypto dies with you. And we do not need any more generational wealth dying with us. So if you have it, make sure that you have a beneficiary on file. And what are we going to do? Make sure they're alive, still in your good graces, or still in their right mind, so that we leave nothing behind. Oh, one other thing. If you're a business owner, please make sure you have a will, right? And in that, when in addition to a will, you want to have a succession plan. What do you want to have happen to your business when you're no longer here? In that situation, you want to make sure that you have a conversation with an insurance agent, because an insurance agent will, there's certain insurances to make sure that your business can continue after you're no longer here. You want to have a succession plan, and you have to speak with a financial planner, an attorney, an accountant about how to set that up. It could be a buy-sell agreement that's over my pay grade, but you want to be able to have access to attorneys to make sure those things are in place, because you didn't build your business for it to go in the grave with you.
Right.
You wanted to go on and leave generational wealth for your family and your grands and great grands and great great grands. So you want to have that discussion, make sure those things are in place properly.
Thank you very much for that.
My
Is
pleasure.
there any, is there any other questions out there in the midst of the listeners for Eileen before we end this call? Everybody is good. Everybody got their things in order. Everybody knows everybody's passwords. No one has any questions. Who take care of their pets? Who get their stuff? What about Eileen? What about small things like clothing and stuff like that, or personal
Well,
items like jewelry?
usually if it's clothing and stuff, unless it's like you got a black llama mink or something like that. If it's like everyday stuff, just say the contents of the house, or just be specific who you want to have it. I had a lady so detailed, she said which set of luggage went to which daughter. So you know what you want. You need to make sure it's in writing and clear as possible.
Okay, fair enough. Well, Eileen gave her information in the chat. This is great information, Eileen.
Thank
For
you for
those
having
people
me.
that, thank you for being on. I think those people who came on did get some great information, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. Anytime I could be of assistance, and we need to talk about probate and another one of these. And I know you're an
Definitely.
expert on that. I have another friend who is a probate does probate insurance, and then just knowing that if you have a will, you can avoid a lot of the headaches.
Yes.
Right.
That,
So maybe we could queue another one of these up for another week and maybe bring Diane in so that, we could discuss, have you two probate giants,
yes.
share their knowledge, because people think it's a nasty word, and it can be. And it's only because people weren't prepared. They didn't have their house in order. So let's get that done.
Yeah, and Miss James just said that this was great information, and she just set up through Apple to give someone access to her phone if she or when she passed.
Very good. Great job. If I was home, I was giving you the pom pom shake, but I'm not home. So on Sunday, if you join us, you will see the purple pom pom
Oh yeah, I know
in
it had to be
celebration.
purple.
I have a purple shirt on. That's about as far as we
I
got.
know, I know. All right, guys, thank you so much. Are there any questions? Lisa, you have anything? Latoya, you have any questions? If you have a question, type it in the chat so we can answer before we end the call. I want to be mindful of her time. Okay, no questions? Being that there's no questions being typed in the chat or being asked, I'm going to end the call from now. And thank you. And we'll do that probate one in a couple of months, all three of us.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. And I hope this information would help simplify and demystify the process so we're not intimidated by leaving legacies instead of mysteries. Thanks for allowing me to be here.
Thank you so much. You have a great evening.
Thank
Bye,
you too.
everyone.
Bye for
Thank you for
now.
joining us.
God
Bye bye.
bless.